Hello and welcome to The Resourceful Woman. Hi, it's been a minute. If any of you have been following me up to now, you know that I have been offline for the last 6 months, as I imagine a lot of people have been in some form or another in their lives. We've all been a little bit disrupted, and I was definitely thrown off my game a bit last spring. But I'm back and I have so much to talk about and share with you. So I thought today I would just kind of run through everything that's been going on with me and with projects that I've been working on, and hopefully get you kind of excited for stuff that I'm doing and stuff that's going to be coming up. And as I do that, I actually I have a couple of pairs of jeans to mend. They've gotten holes in the thighs where my big fat middle-aged thighs rub together. So I am going to be mending these holes whilst I talk to you, which I feel is something very on brand to do. Plus, I always like to be doing more than one thing at once. It's just who I am. So, right, we're ready to go. So, first things first, what happened last spring? I had actually filmed a bunch of things in February and I think right up to early March. And the problem was that my attention to editing had stalled down to nothing. So I wound up just having all these videos but not editing them and not getting them out. Basically from about the end of February, I was obsessed with the news, and I was just sitting at my computer all day, every day, just, refreshing, trying to kind of figure out what's going on like everyone else. And anytime that I wasn't at my computer, I was trying to figure out how to feed my family. Basically, as a lot of people experienced, many of the stores I went to, the shelves were empty of just about everything, and it was a real struggle for a lot of people. We have been very, very lucky, and this whole experience of this year has just reminded me of how grateful I am and how much I have to be grateful for, in the fact that, things could have been a whole lot worse than they've been for us. This actually, in the fullness of time, I can look back at the last 6 months and actually say it's been a pretty good time. My partner and I, we've been home together 24/7 for 6 months, and we are absolutely every bit as in love as we were before. We're not sick of each other, so, knock on wood, that's great. Our daughter is thriving. She's been able to keep up with school, and she has her good days and her bad days like any kid, but she overall is pretty happy and doing well. And we're just not having as many challenges as I think a lot of people have had, and we haven't been sick. So again, thank goodness. We've been really well and healthy, and funnily enough, by never going out and never seeing other people, we're just not even getting the common colds and sore throats and stuff that we would normally get through the course of a year. So yeah, that's all stuff to be grateful for. But we live in a town, a city, a small city, a town, in the south of England, and we don't keep a car. I had lived in large cities like London and San Francisco for many years, and had generally not kept a car, and especially not in London. It never really seemed necessary. Just before lockdown started, I was thinking about going to get my UK driver's license, because my US driver's license is actually going to expire this year, and I do always want to be licensed and legal if I have to drive. And then as well, just for reasons for our family, we've thought about getting a car, and we've thought about, having that. But anyway, in March and April, when, things were really kind of hairy and scary, and I would just have to walk everywhere, and when I would go to get groceries, I could only get, as much as I could carry on my back. And so, I couldn't, obviously I couldn't hoard like a lot of people. I had done some sort of pre-planning because of Brexit. I had actually started stockpiling some things like pasta and rice and canned goods, canned beans and canned tomatoes last year, thinking that, with the onset of Brexit, that food might get really expensive and it might be smart to have some things in. But it turned out like we'd actually, I don't know, I hadn't stockpiled that much, or it ran out really quickly, or I don't really know what. And I just discovered that we really were not prepared at all for a world in which we could not get, basic groceries like canned tomatoes. And a little bit of that, it requires resilience and resourcefulness, and you just have to say, right, if I can't get this thing, I will do without it, and I'll get something else instead, and I'll just find whatever I can find and make do with that. And so that's been actually, I think a very important lesson for all of us here in our house, to just learn a little bit of resilience and of just kind of getting on with it and everything, along with many other people around the world. I did go through some sort of manic bread baking phase where I was so freaked out by that all the bread was gone on the shelves, and I thought, okay, well, I've made bread before, I can make it again. I'll just do that. And, I learned some things like, oh, yeast expires, and all those packets of yeast that I had in my baking cupboard were not good at all. And then, of course, I couldn't get any more yeast. I actually did manage to get some yeast from a neighbor. All of my neighbors on my street here have really pulled together, and especially in the early days, really helped each other out with things that were needed. So that has been like super cool. But for, when I was trying to bake bread to feel better about the broken state of the world, I was finding that very difficult. So I learned a bit about doing, home cultured yeasts, doing like a sourdough starter and that sort of thing. So for several weeks, I was actually obsessed with my yeast starters and, feeding them every day and comparing. There was one that I started with some potato water, and there was another that I started with some yogurts. And it was, it was fun for any kind of inquisitive mind. That's a really kind of fun thing to get into. I actually, looking back on it, as weird as at times it was kind of peaceful and enjoyable in many ways. A lot of it just depends on, how bad things got for you, and it depends on the kind of perspective that you keep. How bad do things have to get before you really just lose your mind? So I was offline for a little bit, and then I finally realized that I did need to maintain some sort of routine and have some sort of things that I was accomplishing, even if I couldn't, go out and see my friends, and even if I couldn't, participate as fully in life as I would like to, that there are plenty of things that make me happy that I could work on. So I was working in the garden quite a bit from kind of March through May. I was really trying to cultivate a vegetable garden. This was my second attempt. I tried last year as well. And the thing is, I just cannot seem to win when it comes to the slugs and the snails. You know, for a little while, I was very vigilant. I was out there every day, picking the little critters out of my vegetable patch and disposing of them, let's say. But I don't like using too many like pest control, like pesticides in my garden, because I've got a little pond that is full of frogs and newts, or actually at the time it was mostly full of tadpoles and newts. And newts are actually legally protected. You're not allowed to do things which would harm them. And I actually am a huge fan of the newts. You may have seen my video of them. I'm a little bit obsessed. So yeah, I try to stay away from pesticides, and so, you know, it means organic gardening, which is maybe just a factor or three above my abilities as a green thumb. I'm really not spectacular with that. I have managed to keep a whole herb garden alive indoors in the conservatory. I actually, at the very, very beginning of lockdown, I'd gone to a big grocery store, one of the ones that sells all the potted herbs, you know, coriander and parsley and basil and all the rest. And I brought them home and repotted them and have fed them and watered them and talked to them and done all the things to kind of keep them alive. And they have, for the most part, really thrived. My mint is failing right now, but it's been a real trooper up to this point, so I'm not mad. Oh, and then of course the other thing that I've been working on, that I spent many, many hours on, particularly in the early days of lockdown, was learning Dutch. You may not know that my partner and his daughter are both from Belgium. They speak Flemish, which is also Dutch. And so I have been working like a dog trying to learn the language so that I can, you know, converse with them in Dutch. It is our idea that if my partner and I do manage to have children together, that we will raise them bilingual, speak to them in Dutch at home and in English outside, so that they grow up just kind of naturally bilingual. We think that that's a good way to do things. I will say I've actually in my life studied many languages, and I find Dutch, you know, as an English speaker with some background in German and Norwegian and French, I'm finding Dutch incredibly easy and straightforward. I'm running now, as I'm kind of getting more proficient with it, I'm running into a lot of grammatical things that I really don't understand. So I'm having to turn to some Dutch grammar books to try to help me out with that, because yeah, like I'll often, you know, in the middle of a lesson, I'll go to my partner and ask him, like, why is this way, and how do I know which of these three words to use in this context, and blah blah blah. And he often like has no idea. He's just like, you know, you know the language, and then you know which one to do. And I'm like, that's not an answer. So as with pretty much everything else I do, as with all of the projects that I work on and show you, nothing is 100% the first time. Everything takes a lot of work and a lot of failing and then trying again, and Dutch is certainly no different to any of the rest of those. But I do enjoy it, and you know, with learning a language, it's funny, you get these kind of ups and downs. There's days where you feel like, oh man, you know, I'm nailing this is amazing, you know, I can speak the language now, yeah. And then the very next minute you're like, no, I'm an idiot, I know nothing, you know, I am nowhere with this. So yeah, it's it's an adventure. But I am, overall, I'm actually really enjoying it. Although I wish that they wouldn't make fun of me and my pronunciation quite as much as they do. One of the first projects that I actually, ironically, you'll understand, managed to complete early on, was something I had started last year, was reupholstering this room, this dining room that I sit in. It's just, we rented here. We can't make a lot of changes. We're not gonna like paint all the walls mauve or anything like that. But there's this whole window seat where I'm sitting, and I had wanted to kind of coordinate all of the seating in this room, the dining room chairs, which I bought from 2 different sources online. I'd found that getting a nice set of 8 chairs was like crazy expensive. It would have been like £1,000, but getting 2 sets of 4 chairs that like are similar enough, even though they're not perfectly matching, was only like 120 pounds, something like that. It was like way less. And so I did put some money into taking off all of the fabric and reupholstering those chairs and everything, but it is one of the projects that I am most proud of in my life. I am just like super stoked about the way that everything came out. And so yeah, I'll be doing actually probably a couple of videos to show you all the process that I did with doing the chairs, and then with doing this window seat, and then with kind of putting the whole room together. And in the end, after I had done all of the dining chairs and the window seat and kind of gotten all of that stuff figured out, I kind of reorganized. Like, I didn't change a lot in terms of the decor, because most of the decor in here is like, just like items that are really personal to me. But I did get some new picture frames, and I kind of coordinated the stuff on the walls a little bit better than it had been, and rearranged those things a little bit. And it's probably, it's not ideal. It doesn't look like some designer put this together. It's not like so many of those houses that you see on YouTube where you're like, oh my god, like, you have so many coordinated throw cushions, and oh, that lamp matches that rug, and everything's so perfect. It's not like that at all. But funnily enough, as I've been going along, I actually discovered that there is a name for my preferred aesthetic. It's called Grand Millennial. Like, if you combine grandma and millennial. I don't personally identify as a millennial. I think I'm too old, but I like the term, and it absolutely captures kind of how I decorate. Because pro tip, I've discovered that not only is it like way cheaper than you'd think to buy all your furniture as antiques. Like, apparently this generation, to which I do not belong, the millennials, have not really been into antiques. And so all these kind of antique dealers and people that buy up estate sales and all this kind of stuff, they don't, they have all this stock and they can't seem to shift it. So the prices of things have really come down. I have this beautiful Regency dining table that seats up to 10, and I got it for £60. Like, what? Are you kidding me? And like I said, I got the chairs for like another £100. I got a little cabinet that you'll see. It's a little like kind of Edwardian era cabinet that I keep a lot of my sewing stuff in, because this is the dining room, but it is also my workspace. I use the big dining table to work on a lot of my stuff, and also just to have a kind of like private room for me, like, that I can kind of when my partner is working in the next room, I can come in here and I can make noise and listen to music and do sewing and do all the rest. So yeah, I've now got this room like totally kitted out to how I want it to be, and I'm really, really happy in here. I kind of like, I sit in this window and I watch everything that's going on in the street, and I sit in the, you know, at the dining table, and I kind of, you know, look at everything on the walls, and, you know, as I said, everything here is really personal to me, and, you know, connected to people and memories and, you know, lots of lovely things. So I am just super happy with how all of that has come out, and yeah, I will be sharing that in an upcoming video. Okay, oh, the next thing that I was working on was this fabulous jacket. I had gone to a thrift store back in February, probably late February, with the idea that what I wanted to get was like some nice wool men's three-piece suit, and I was gonna take it apart and refit it for like my very feminine body, and like, you know, put in cuts and darts and things like that, and make it look like super cute. And what I discovered, what somebody in one of the thrift shops told me, she's like, men don't get rid of things. They just don't. Like, we don't get a lot of that stuff in here. So that's not what she sounded like. I just sounded very Californian right there. But of course I'm in England. That is not at all what she sounded like. But yeah, I couldn't find what I was initially after, but I did find this wool jacket, and I thought I saw a lot of potential in it. It was only £10. So I took it home, and over the course of quite a lot of time, I took apart all of the seams to kind of figure out where I was going to, you know, tighten it and fit it and tailor it in certain places. And I also opened up all of the seams around the lapels and the pockets, so that I could embroider on them. And as you can see here, I embroidered, you know, all up and down and everywhere. If you look at some of the pictures that I took, the kind of in progress shots, there were lots of places where I, you know, wasn't happy with something that I had done, and so I would just like pull it out and start it again. And so this project really did, you know, it took some time. It was not a kind of like an overnight thing. I didn't film doing it because it's like actually quite, I can't imagine how boring it would be to sit and watch somebody embroider for like hours and hours. Actually, no, that's not true. I sit on YouTube and watch people embroider for hours and hours, but I don't think I'm that interesting to watch. And I had narrowed the shoulders because the shoulders were way too wide for me initially. And then I put the sleeves back on. That took many, many tries to get right. Setting sleeves is no joke. It's something that I, you know, am not hugely experienced in. You know, I've done it a few times, and it's always been difficult. It has always involved several tries, and what I think most people do, certainly what I do, is baste them as I go, and then, you know, once I've kind of got it basted together and it looks like it's supposed to be, then I do the actual stitching and the tight sewing to keep it in there. So that was interesting. And even in the end, you know, when it felt like I was in the final stretch, I had to put all those bits and pieces back together. The lapels that I'd opened and the pockets that I'd opened. I hand sewed the lining back in, and so that again took quite a lot of nights in front of the television, just kind of stitching little tiny stitches all the way along. So that was kind of, you know, hey, it's one way to get through lockdown. I think I would often sit and embroider and be like watching some TV show like on my tablet or something in front of me. So I made my way through so many seasons of old shows, like I think a lot of us are doing at the moment. So yeah, I've kind of sort of used up almost everything that I ever felt like watching, and I'm starting to run out of things now. But anyway, I have also worked on a couple of cross-stitch projects. Now, I actually classify cross-stitch and embroidery are not exactly the same thing. It's in the name. You can sometimes embroider on something that you're cross-stitching or vice versa. But these are, I think, distinctly different kind of things. And I've done a couple of cross-stitch projects throughout the course of lockdown. One was, I really like this poem, Good Bones by Maggie Smith. And not the actress Maggie Smith, different Maggie Smith. And yeah, so I decided to embroider that onto a little bit of cross-stitch fabric. And I actually had to, it took me 2 attempts because I was basically just sort of freewheeling it with doing the lettering and stuff like that. I didn't try to follow any sort of particular lettering pattern or anything like that. I just sort of had a vision in my mind for how it was going to be and what it was going to look like. And then as I went along, I had very nearly completed the poem on the first piece that I started on. And then I realized that for what I wanted to do, I was going to run out of space at the bottom. So I was like, oh no. And I thought, you know, what am I going to do? Do I pull this out? Do I try to reorder it? What do I do? What do I do? And in the end, I just decided, okay, I'll just start again. And I used that first piece as kind of my guide for, okay, this is how big the rows have to be. This is how big the letters have to be. So that I could do it again properly on something that would fit. And then again, I didn't sketch out what I was doing. I just sort of went along with it. So there's this bit, like for instance, I tried to make it look like a house that has broken windows and like weeds growing in the front. And the windows look more like they've just got spider webs in them. And the weeds, I don't know if they really look like weeds, but hey, it was another lockdown project completed. So, you know, I'm not too put out by it. You know, I liked it enough that I still like stuck it in a frame and put it on the wall. So this is part of my entire, you know, dining room refurb. And it's something, you know, I'm not as excited about it as I was about the jacket, but it's pretty cool just the same. And then finally, I had asked my daughter if she kind of wanted to do anything, you know, project-wise, creative-wise, to try to get through lockdown. And she said that she was also interested in cross-stitch. And so I went online with her and she picked out this pattern of a wolf, like a watercolor of a wolf, that is really, really cool and really pretty. And I did think it was probably pretty ambitious for her. And sure enough, like after I'd kind of downloaded the instructions and got all of the threads and everything, she did about 7 stitches and then gave up. So yeah, that wasn't really going to work out. But I left it aside for a while to see if she, you know, maybe would want to come back to it. But she didn't, and we eventually agreed that I would take it over and work on it. So I have just very nearly completed that. And I'm really happy with how it's turned out. There are mistakes in it, but this pattern is actually very forgiving. Because I'm the only one that knows where the mistakes are. It's just as I'm going along and I'm counting stitches and I'm like, oh, that stitch is, you know, 1 square off. But once it is completed, you know, nothing about that will be evident in any way. So, yeah, I'm just about to finish that one up, and I'll stick it in a frame and give it to her to have in her room because she really likes wolves. Um, and then as I was doing this, I got into so many thread colors and everything that I decided that I needed to expand my little kit where I keep all of my embroidery floss. And so that was just like a really quick little afternoon project. I took what I already had, which is a kit that was made for me by an older relative when I was very little, and just kind of added a few more panels to it to kind of fold into it, and yeah, just have more space for more thread. And I was pretty happy with that. So that was all of my cross-stitch and embroidery. Moving on to knitting. I am not great with knitting. I'm probably a lot quicker and more proficient when it comes to crochet as opposed to knitting. Like, I can crochet a hat in an afternoon, or do all kinds of things. But I had decided a while back that I needed to get better at knitting. So I conceived a project last year that was actually, again, for my daughter. She likes to sit at her desk in her room, and she gets cold really easily, even with the heat on and everything. So last year I picked out some yarn of colors that she really likes, and I'd started knitting this great big shawl that she can use as kind of a throw. And as always with any knitting project, it took way longer than I ever thought it would. And I started it in August of 2019, and I just finished it like a week or two ago. And gave it to her, and she's really happy. I've seen her wrapped up in it a few times already, so I'm pretty proud of that. But then knitting a straight, like, just a big rectangle is not that much of a challenge. You knit your purl, stockinette stitch all the way. And so I would like to challenge myself a little bit and branch out. So I have this next project on the go. This is for somebody that might actually be watching. So I'm not going to say too much about what I have planned, but I will share photos of progress and things as I go along on my social media. So yeah, we'll see if I can get any better at knitting. And kind of, along the same lines as coming across Grand Millennial, I've also come across cottagecore as a concept, and oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. It is absolutely what I'm about and what I'm into, with all of the needlework and baking and gardening and yada yada yada. Like, I'm not nearly as aesthetic and beautiful and neat and tidy as a lot of my cottagecore hardcores, but I do really enjoy it as a concept. Yeah, so moving on, I spent actually a large portion of June and July making face masks. I had studied up and watched a lot of other people on YouTube, and I actually found this lady I really like in Washington State, who is kind of one of the first places to be really deeply affected by COVID. And these ladies who run a quilting shop got really into making thousands and thousands of masks to donate to healthcare providers. So they learned a lot. They tried a bunch of different styles and fits and ways of wearing and so forth, and they worked with healthcare professionals to kind of figure out what worked and what didn't, and they found this great design that was submitted by some engineer guy all the way across the country in like South Carolina or something called the Jessie mask. And I just really liked what they were doing, and I got a lot of great kind of hints and tips and ideas from them, which I will link to their videos below, and figured out kind of a style of mask to make for people. And then I just kind of like put the word out that I was making masks and got loads of people interested in them. So I made dozens for members of my family and sent them back to the States. I made dozens more for my neighbors up and down the street. And I'm actually still getting some requests from people. So sometime later this week, I'll sit down and make another batch of masks, and I'll probably film it and, you know, put it together and show you kind of what I'm doing. I mean, there's so many styles and options and everything out there, and people have so many masks. But I do get a lot of good feedback on these, that they're, you know, comfortable to wear and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. After a while, it did get very exhausting, like, just that I was like tied to my sewing machine for hours and hours every day. And, you know, by a certain point in like late July, I was like, I can't wait to be done with these so I could just like move on and do other things in my life. But I am actually also proud of what I managed to accomplish. And it was right before actually a lot of people in the UK and around Europe started going on holiday. So I managed to get a lot of masks out to my neighbors before they set out on various trips across the continent, and they all sent back like really cute pictures of their whole families like wearing their masks and, you know, being safe and everything. So that was actually really cute. Here, I'm almost done with this pair of jeans, and then I will move on to the next one. Whew. So the very last project that I've actually managed to complete so far in lockdown has been basically taking over the cupboard under the stairs and making it into a little bit of an overflow pantry. This was not something that I had initially conceived or set out to do, but I was working on something else. I've been trying to build custom shoe racks for our entryway, and I had picked up some reclaimed wood from various sources. I had like an old pallet and an old some pieces of a shed that a neighbor had taken apart, and some pieces of lumber that had been reclaimed from some old scaffolding and things like that. And that was a project that I started a year ago, and then just due to weather and neighbors and just various reasons, I just could not get out to work on it very often, and it's still, as of today, uncompleted, but very, very close. But as I was in the middle of doing all of that, I kind of noticed that like we have a sort of a need for someplace like an overflow for food. We don't have a lot of cupboards in the kitchen, don't have a lot of space for food and things. And ever since lockdown, we've been buying a lot of things in bulk, particularly drinks, you know, sodas and juices and things like that, because it's too heavy for me to carry home on my back. I would have to go like every single day to get like six packs of Coke Zero and things like that. That could just not work in a practical sense. And as well, pet food, in order to save some money on pet food and save, again, my my back and my shoulders, We buy it in bulk and have it delivered. So these things are, you know, things that we're now buying on a regular basis, but we need space for when they get delivered. We were putting them in a spare bedroom that's kind of next to the kitchen, but it's just not a great solution, especially when our stepson comes to visit. That is his room, and we can't be going in his room at all hours of the day to like fetch more Coke and things like that. So something had to be done. What I did was I'd taken this cupboard under the stairs, and it was just like, I was using it as like a cupboard for cleaning supplies ever since we moved in, and then I kind of realized that like I wasn't really maximizing that space. So I found other places in the house to put like the mop and bucket and the Hoover and stuff like that. And so I checked all of that stuff out, cleaned it out, and then just used a few bits of all of this reclaimed wood that I had to make some shelves. And you know, they're not pretty, they're not like super special, fantastic, fabulous shelves. You know, this is not something that like my dad would have made and would be proud of, but like they're functional. Like that's all they have to be. They're functional. They hold things, and that's pretty much all they have to do. So but one shelf I didn't even have to like really nail it together. I just sort of like laid it in there across a couple of pieces of, I don't know, something that were already in there. And then the other shelf I kind of set up next to it. And then I have been packing and repacking that pantry ever since I finished it. So I'm trying to figure out kind of the most optimum place for everything, where like, you know, you can get to something without having to like pull out 6 other things. That is one thing. It is a tight space, and I am definitely trying to pack a lot of stuff into it. So finding the most efficient way to do so is an ongoing adventure. But yeah, so that was my little pantry project. That's pretty much everything that I've actually completed so far. But I also wanted to just kind of tell you about stuff I've got coming up. I've got some great like recipes coming up, some things I have shared with friends and they've really, really liked. And I'm going to be doing some canning, making a few different preserved things like applesauce and chutney and pickled cabbage, which I will show you. That was another sort of talent that I've learned in lockdown, is how to do my own home canning with minimal sort of resources. Like I don't have like specific tools for canning. I just sort of read a lot of stuff online and figured it out. So I'm doing it your grandma's way. I've conceived of a little project of stuff to do with old keys. You know, if you have lived in your house for like 20 years, then you will not know what this is like. But I have moved from apartment to apartment to apartment so many times over the last 20 years. I have just collected keys from all over the place, and I no longer know what anything is to. Like, I know what my keys are for my current house, and everything else is just a great big mystery to me. So I'm going to take all of these keys that I've got and try to turn them into a little bit of a Christmas decoration. So watch this space. This could turn out great, or this could turn out really ugly and sad. Either way, I will share it. So I am going to show you the shoe racks when I get them done. I'm still currently kind of hammering things together. You know that thing about like measure twice, cut once? Yeah, I measured so many times, and I still, for some reason, when I got the whole thing put together, I tried to put it in place, and it was like half a centimeter too wide, and it wasn't going to go in, which was extremely disappointing. So I'm going to have to go back and cut a bunch of pieces down to make them fit. A little bit frustrating that, but whatever, I'll live. I've actually, with my best friend Emily, hey Emily! With Emily, we have been working on a memory quilt. We took all of her dad's old shirts, and we're actually, because we've got so many shirts, we're going to be able to make several quilts for everyone in her family to have a little something of him to remember him by. So that's been like a really lovely ongoing project, and it's really fun because my friend Emily comes around and we work on things and we gossip and drink tea and just have a lovely, lovely time. So yeah, that is something that I've worked on, and I don't know exactly when it's going to be finished, but I will definitely show it when it's done. And then I've got a lot of Christmas gift ideas. So I try every year to make at least a few Christmas gifts for people. I like doing homemade instead of store-bought, and I've got lots of ideas for things. I'm figuring that since it's only September now, I might actually manage to get one or two of them done. I was given a whole bunch of, you know, those threads that you always get with like a new jumper, and you know, you're supposed to keep it aside so like in case you get like moth holes or something in it, that you can always repair it. Well, Emily's mom, hey Emily, Emily's mom saved loads of those threads for years and years and years, and then gave them to me, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with these? But I actually have an idea for what I might be able to do with these threads. Again, it could be fantastic or it could be a disaster. I don't know. So we'll just have to kind of wait and find out. But yeah, so that is kind of everything that is done so far, and some of the things that are coming up. I will be sharing some photos and stuff on social media. You can check me out on Facebook or on Instagram. And I would love it if you would come and share either in the comments on YouTube or on any of my social media. Share what you've been working on. Share what you're kind of excited about. Share what you're anxious about. You know, share what have you been doing with your lockdown? And you know, are you proud of it? You know, do you wish you'd done it differently? This is not a place where everything's perfect all the time and it all just like comes out beautifully and is like super Instagrammable. This is like a place where we get things wrong and we try and try again, and we figure out what works and what doesn't, and we give ourselves a break from having to feel any kind of pressure towards perfection. So I really do hope to hear from you and get to see some of what you're working on. And you know, I'm often, you know, put to shame by some of the people I know, Daniel and Sarah. Hey Daniel and Sarah, that you are just so much more talented and amazing than I am, and I'll just like come up with a project and then they'll come up with something that's like, you know, inspired but 10,000 times better. But yeah, that's what it is to have, you know, talented, interesting, artistic friends, is just to be constantly like amazed and inspired by other people. So I just want to like reiterate, I feel so lucky right now. Like this whole last 6 months could have been a lot worse. It has been a lot worse for a lot of people. I'm just feeling really, really grateful for everything that I have. I'm feeling really, really grateful just for all of the people in my life, and all of the incredible support and everything that I have. And also just really feeling like really connected to the rest of the world, you know? It's funny, like there's never at any time in human history been so many people all around the world experiencing so many things in such a similar way, like such a kind of massive shock to the system. Like honestly, can you remember any time in your life where like everyone was like manically baking banana bread all at once? Like this has been insane. And you know, in some ways I want to remember it. I want to remember what I've learned from this time and what I've taken from this time and what I should be grateful for from this time. I'm already actually kind of mourning the month of March a little bit. Every time I go out for a walk now, and it's so like noisy with traffic, and I really did love the quiet, you know, for a moment things got really quiet and it was super peaceful, and I want to remember that. So I don't know, again, I am just rabbiting on, and I've been doing this for quite a while now, so I'm almost done with this last little seam that I'm mending, and so it's probably time to sign off. But if you enjoy The Resourceful Woman, if you're interested in kind of following along with any of these projects that I've mentioned, please do give me a like and a subscribe. Leave a comment for any kind of things that you'd like to see or like to see more of. If you have any questions about any of the projects that I mentioned today. And I just really hope to get some engagement with anyone out there, and see you again next time. Thanks so much. Bye. So, hello Daisy, how are you doing? How are you doing, sweetheart? Do you want to sit here? Okay, you can sit here.